I also have one that employs the second person point of view, which is, it is utterly unique to poetry. A writer can very rarely accomplish writing a play, screenplay. It's impossible to do that speaking directly to someone. I mean, you can do it metaphorically, use other devices to try to communicate to someone, but poems actually give you the opportunity to speak directly to a person. And sometimes, I mean, you can tell a person off whom you don't like, and sometimes you can speak to someone who's no longer around to speak to. So my dad actually recently passed away this year, February 16th. This is a poem I wrote back in 1999. It finally got published in 2007, but I've changed it significantly since then to better express what I was feeling, because I actually do feel that, like the saying, 2020 is hindsight, right? I actually feel that that time does clarify our thoughts on things, and this is not a belief that all poets share. For example, Denise Levertov hates revision because she thinks that she's never in the same place emotionally that she was when she wrote the poem, but I don't agree with this. Frost said that poems are never really finished, they're only abandoned. And that's kind of true in all writing. Writing is never really finished. This is to my father on the death of his father. I wrote this when my grandfather passed away in '99. It was originally titled, and the title it was published under was Elegy for My Grandfather, the Golf Caddy. So, which he was when he was young, he was a golf caddy. But your feelings on certain situations change as you grow older, so I do believe in revision, and you can still stay true to the ideas in the poem by revising. Okay. To my father on the death of his father. You told me you could barely remember him holding you as a child, so I can only imagine you cradling in the crescent of your arm, your father's head, bald and dimpled as the golf balls he fetched from the lake, of the golf course he mowed as a child. You held his body draped in white hospital sheets like the fish he wrapped in newspapers and sold to tourists. IVs wormed their way through his veins, hooked to the gills like a fish caught between two worlds. He gasped for breath, grasping for something eternal. The God of Abraham will cradle you as a child, you whispered, as his heart slowed to a whisper and his lungs expired. Beneath the towering Joshua tree, you buried his remains, 8 pounds of ash and bone already taking root, embedded in the green grass of Mission Lakes Country Club, where he worked his youth away, mowing the golf course to a tee, years lost with every fistful of ash tossed through the Joshuas shaking their claws at heaven, contorted into question marks at the end of a life sentence. You floated through that golf course's lake in a rented boat, not altogether unlike the soul-laden body adrift through any night's cold, dark, indifferent air, knowing we're all born beneath one roof, this sky, and all must shoulder the blue beyond. The morning sky is a blank sheet spreading out before me, lacking stars and infinitely wide and deep as the sea. I look up past the blue beyond to God who is everywhere but here. The austere trees stand proudly, and death is all that shadows us. Thank you. I have another second-person poem, if we have time.
Go for it.
Sure?
Go for it.
Okay. Because if you're in my class, we need to start class at 1:20 sharp. So I'll make an announcement when we need to leave. I don't see many of you here, which is not good, but that's okay. Okay, this is a Nazim Hikmet poem. He was a Turkish poet, and he was imprisoned in a Turkish prison for inciting the army to riot. Someone in the army, the Turkish army, got a hold of a copy of his book of poems and got him all stirred up. So he was kept in prison for the rest of his life. until he was put in exile, I think, at the end. But this is a poem. Obviously, Turkish prisons are no fun place. If you've ever seen the movie Midnight Express, where the guy is trying to smuggle something out of the country, it's not a very good place to be. But this poem is a direct address poem, a second-person point of view poem, speaking directly to the doctor who's told him that he has coronary heart problems. That's redundant, but the disease is called angina pectoris, and please don't laugh at the title. Every time I read this, the students, they crack up. But it's actually, it's the symptoms of having severe chest pain due to coronary disease. So it basically feels like you're getting shot in the heart. So that's what he uses. He uses this disease as kind of this analogy for his camaraderie with his fellow. He was a communist around the country. So he's addressing this doctor who's told him he's had this disease. So he says, and obviously the doctor's told him that he only has half of his heart left. So he says, if half my heart is here, doctor, the other half is in China, with the army flowing toward the Yellow River. And every morning, doctor, every morning at sunrise, my heart is shot in Greece. And every night, doctor, when the prisoners are asleep and the infirmary is deserted, my heart stops at an old, rundown house in Istanbul. And then after 10 years, all I have to offer my poor people is this apple in my hand, doctor, one red apple, my heart. And that, doctor, that is the reason for this angina pectoris, not nicotine, prison, or arteriosclerosis. I look at the night through these bars, and despite the weight on my chest, my heart still beats with the most distant stars. So that was Nazim Hikmet. Good example of a second-person poem where you're actually addressing someone that you want to speak to. And if you're a history teacher, there's a lot of good, obviously, historical references there to teach. But anyway, we won't talk about all that. We need to let Mr. Clough read. So thank you.